Alright, first things first, my name is Dale the Gamer, real man, real gamer, and today I want to talk about the possibility of Rocksteady being the next big AAA studio to shut down or having a major employee layoff because of a game flopping. Now, in case y'all didn't know, Rocksteady hasn't released a full-blown AAA game since 2015, and that would be Batman Arkham Knight. And their newest game that's coming out is Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, which was set to release last year in 2022, then was set to release this year in 2023, and now it's set to release in 2024 of March, I believe. So it's going to be basically 9 years since they have released a big AAA game, right? And the possibility of them shutting down or having a major employee layoff comes from the fact is if this game doesn't do well, you most likely will see one of the two options happen. Because let's face it, this game is a AAA game that had a lot of money put into it from the single player stuff, even though the single player content can only be online only to all the live service stuff they put into the game as well. I think they really are booking on making this a really big live service game where a lot of people flock to. But if that doesn't happen, we are definitely going to see a shutdown from Rocksteady, which is unfortunately because this studio is a really great studio and they decided to make a game very massive, very expensive, and possibly being way over their heads to this is a possibility of their studio shutting down. Now, some of my reasons for thinking this is we just recently had a lot of studios shut down. That being Volition, who did the latest Saints Row game, Daedalic Entertainment, who did the recent Gollum game, and Luminous, who did the recent Forspoken game. And now those games are mainly like single player games, narrative based games, but there's also some live service games as well that has shut down. Now, not the studios, but just the live service games in general, which is here's a couple: Marvel Avengers, Rumbleverse, Back for Blood, Knockout City, Crossfire X, and many other games. I understand there is games out there from live service and single player games that does succeed where they do keep the studios alive and they do focus on more content, but there's also a possibility of Rocksteady facing a fate of them not creating a proper game. This game has already got a lot of negative backlash from the stuff they showed into the trailer about the game, and it just looks awful from a lot of community people eyes, a lot of gamer eyes. The game content in the trailer just looks awful. Now, granted, when it comes out, this game could be a whole different changer, a whole different viewpoint of it actually being good. But the fact that this game is also $70 and it's also a live service game, I don't really see this game succeeding as well as it needs to succeed to keep the studio Rocksteady up. Now, we also got games like Halo Infinite that I wanted to compare it to, being that even Halo Infinite being under Microsoft, it still faced a couple layoffs. They didn't shut the studio down, they didn't shut the game down, but they did lay off a lot of people from Halo Infinite team that helped make the game from 343 Studios. And one of the main reasons why was because most likely they just didn't need that many people to keep that game going because it's not a really big game that's how would I say bringing in a lot of money to where they need to make consistent big content. It's just not that type of game. Now there are games that have succeeded, like the live service games that have succeeded, like the Fortnites, like the Warzone, like the Apex Legends. But I just don't. Even with those games, I still think that there's a huge fatigue, there's a huge boredom, and there's just I think Rocksteady in this Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League has just really missed a window of opportunity. And I think the same fate has going to meet Sony as well with their recent plans of releasing, like, I think they plan on releasing like 15 to 20 live service games between the year of now and 2026, which, oh my God, I just think they really missed the ball. Granted, I do believe one might be successful for them. I mean, one got to be successful if they plan on releasing like 15 to 20 live service games. But I just think the trend and the fad have really, for what I think hasn't fully passed but it just hasn't been a new game that could sit in the throne of the top live service games. Is there a possibility that a new live service game can come into the circle? Yes, but I highly doubt it, and I just really think the main ones are just gonna stay there until you really get something fresh. Now, I want to come back to Rocksteady real quick because Rocksteady was supposedly was working on a Superman game, and that's probably another reason why they took so forever to come out with another game, because Rocksteady was actually releasing they released Arkham Asylum in 2009. Then they came back in 2011 and did Arkham City. And 2015 they came out with Arkham Knight. Now they did a 4-year gap because Warner Brothers Montreal came out in 2013 and gave us Arkham Origins, which was a consistent 2-year gap from all four Arkham games, right? Or all four Arkham games. And now we just recently got Gotham Knights. Now, the only thing that I will say is I see a possibility of Rocksteady staying afloat and staying a full blown developer studio is Gotham Knights, because even though I wouldn't say Gotham Knights lived up to the reviewers or even the audience, it apparently made enough money and did good enough to where they didn't fire anybody from that studio from what I know of, and they also didn't shut the studio down. The studio is still going. So Gotham Knights, even though it wasn't the best game review out there, it was still able to not face employee layoffs and also avoid a studio shutdown. And Warner Brothers also has NetherRealm, who just came out with Mortal Kombat 1. They also had the studio who did Hogwarts Legacy. So right now, Warner Brothers are still full force into the video game business. I'm thinking even if game Suicide Squad doesn't do good, there still is a possibility where they won't fully shut the studio down, but they will do a massive layoff. Because like I said, if this game doesn't hit, if they're not able to keep this game consistently coming out with content, consistently having players spend money almost every other day or every week, this game will cause a huge problem in their studio. I want to mention another thing, because if they're able to keep the budget down, though, hopefully they have been able to keep the budget down. But if they haven't been able to keep the budget down, I don't think it would. I really think this is a DOA game, because let's mention another game real quick. Even though this is a single player game, Callisto Protocol, the price was so insane to produce that game that when they didn't meet expectations, I think the game sold good enough. I think it sold like 3 million copies, but I don't think the studio completely shut down. But I know I think a good amount of people got laid off from the studio. Was the budget was just so extremely out there. How in the world do you expect a game like that to sell 10 million? I don't know how many copies need to sell to make its money back properly, but how do you expect that? At one point, you got to realize just too much money is going into a project where there's no way you're going to get that amount of money back on that project. I want to mention another example being games are extremely expensive for most big games and not able to recruit certain percentages. And we seen that from the latest, we seen that statement from the latest boss, Sean Layden, who literally said, look, but if we don't figure out how to stop these budgets from being so massively big for like these big single player games, because let's be honest, single player games, depending on what they are, they're pretty much dead within the first couple of months of sales wise, unless you're gonna somehow consistently sell a single player game. However you're gonna do it, it's pretty much dead. It's gonna make its money back in the first couple of months, and that's basically about it. And that's another reason why more people want to get into the live service games, because you're able to keep content coming out at a steady rate and make consistent money back instead of have to wait for a 4 to 5 year plus life cycle of a new game getting turned around. Now, another issue that I seen a lot of people was talking about was the Suicide Squad IP. Me personally, I am excited to play the Suicide Squad game, but one thing that turned me off from even wanting to play the game when they announced it earlier this year was it was going to be online only. Even if you wanted to do the single player content, you still had to be online only, which that completely turned me off from that game. I didn't even want to touch it after that. I can understand some games like the Texas Chainsaw game that just recently came out where that's online only. Of course, it's going to be online only. It's PvP. But something like Suicide Squad does not need to be online only. So I decided, hell, I was so excited for this IP because I believe the Suicide Squad IP is a great IP to work with. Hell, one of my favorite movies is Suicide Squad Assault on Arkham. It's literally up there in like my top 15 to top 20 movies of all time. That's how great that movie is. It's an animated movie, and hope y'all give it a watch. And I still stand by the original live action Suicide Squad movie, especially. Me personally enjoying that movie, and I definitely enjoyed the second version of that movie as well by James Gunn. But yeah, I think the IP is so great that I didn't mind the IP, but the fact that they're taking this long to turn around a game that's gonna possibly flop, if it doesn't flop and it does good, of course the studio is gonna stay up. But I think we're just seeing so many examples of a lot of live service games just flopping and not able to sustain what they wanted to do or what needs to be done to keep their game alive. And we also seeing a lot of single player games out there as well, for the most part, facing the same fate of completely dying, not making their money back, and the studio shutting down or laying off a massive amount of people. And one more thing is, I can definitely see the studio shutting down because the president or the CEO right now is David Zaslav. He's over the whole Warner Brothers content, and this guy has already cut a lot of content out there from like the streaming services and movies in general. Like he's just been axing stuff and just cutting stuff and getting rid of it. Like he got rid of majority of all the CW content. I know he got rid of a good amount of shows on HBO Max or Max now. He didn't even want to release the Batgirl or the Batwoman movie. He just completely like said, we're going to keep it in the vault and we're going to leave it as a tax write-off or something like that. So this guy is not afraid to cut away stuff that he feel like is deemed useless at this point. Because like I said, I think the video game market for them has been doing pretty good. Even though Gotham Knights didn't do that well for reviews wise, like I said, it's apparently made this money back because nobody faced a layoff from what I know, and also the studio didn't shut down. Back for Blood, I will say, was the only bad game recently for them. And like I said, that did stop getting supported, but the studio is still up and they're working on their next game. So I wouldn't say that was a full-blown L for them, but yeah. I don't know, man. What y'all guys think? Do y'all think it's over for Rocksteady if Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League doesn't turn out to be good and doesn't turn out to hit their money profit that they need to hit? Because the amount of capital that they put into this game has to be a lot. I mean, like I said, I don't even think they was fully working on this game for a full 9 years. Apparently, there was reports that came out and said that they was working on a Superman game briefly, and they presented the game towards Warner Brothers top execs, and they passed on it. They turned it down, and eventually they came up with Suicide Squad instead. But overall, yeah, I think the studio is pretty much in trouble if this game doesn't turn out to do what it needs to do. All right, my name is Delta Gamer. I'm a real man. I'm a real gamer. Thanks for watching.